Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, May the 9th, 2023, and you're at the City of Opa-locka Community Redevelopment Agency. We're gonna ask roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Chair Russell,
Here,
Vice Chair Nikisha Williams. Board Member Taylor,
Here.
Board Member Irvin,
here,
Board Member Dr. Bass,
here.
Board Member Kelly,
Present.
Board Member Veronica Williams.
Here. We're gonna ask every one of you to stand for the invocation, and after that, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Board Member Taylor, would you give us the invocation, please?
God, we thank you for bringing us together one more time in your name. God, we ask that you look on our city, look on the leadership of the city, that we would do the right thing for your people, doing your will. In Jesus' name, we pray, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you let the record reflect that Board Member Nikisha Williams is present?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Director, do we have any add-ons to the agenda tonight?
Madam Chair, we do not. However, I would like to make a couple of announcements.
Please.
So first, I do want to acknowledge that one of the recommendations was to have our nameplates that you see before you. We'll be able to provide that for the board members. So yourself, Vice Chair, the attorney, and the clerk have their nameplates.
Thank you.
I also want to present the chair with something else.
Aw. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That's mighty noble of you, as they would say. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's thoughtful. And I appreciate it. I appreciate it, board members. Ms. Dallas and Ms. Kim, thank you. Thank you very much. A lady's touch. I'm lost for words. I am. Pulls, add-ons.
Madam Chair, at this time, we would like to pull items 2, items 3 for deferral. And then item 5, we're pulling it for a discussion by the board.
Okay, let the
Repeat that one more time, please.
We're pulling items 2 and 3 for deferral. And an item 5 for discussion.
so instead of item 5 being a resolution, that would be a discussion item.
That is correct.
Okay, so we need a motion to accept the agenda as amended. Move it. Moved by Board Member Bass,
Second.
second by Board Member Veronica Williams. Oh, I'm sorry, Irving, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking. Board Member Irving. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Chair Russell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nikisha Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Taylor,
Yes.
Board Member Irvin,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Bass,
Yes.
Board Member Kelly,
Yes.
Board Member Veronica Williams.
Yes. Now we're gonna move on to the approval of the minutes. Someone can go ahead and move it.
Move it.
Moved by Board Member Taylor. Second. Second by Board Member Veronica Williams. I'm gonna ask the board. I've spoken to the director, and in going over the minutes the minutes are from November 2022. And I see that there are several errors in the minutes. So I'm asking the director to pull the minutes and for the staff to go over the minutes again and represent them. And along with that, I'm also asking staff to get up to date on all of the minutes because we're 6 months behind. And as you know, we received negative for our minutes not being timely before. So I've spoken to the director and he's going to speak to the company that does our minutes to see if they can bring them all up to date. And if that happens, we're gonna ask board members to please be diligent. And when they get them to you to try to go over them. So at our next 2 meetings, we could get those 6 months worth of minutes caught up and up to date. So can we not approve the minutes for tonight? So how do we do, Mr. Attorney, do we take back our motion and our second?
Yeah, you'd have to do that, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right, who moved it?
I moved this, so I'll take back my motion.
Okay, all right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comments. Public comments is now open. No public comments. Okay. Mr. Director, do you want to take this time to introduce your guest?
Chair Russell, at this time, I do want to introduce the members that will be speaking during the director's report. Ms. Leah Yaffer, who is coming from the Community Fund of North Miami-Dade. And then online, we have Ms. Debbie Dorset from the Greater Miami Service Corps.
Okay, so you want to have them doing your director's report, or you want to have them speak now, and then when if we have any questions during your director's report, we could take care of that at that time?
If it's the will of the board, we can actually move the director report up so I can at least introduce the items, and then we can let our guests speak at that time.
What is the will of the board?
Let's deal with the resolutions.
Okay, all right. One board member says, let's deal with the resolutions. Anyone else?
Deal with the resolutions, keep the agenda as is.
Okay, so keep the presenters during the time of the director's report. So we'll go ahead and handle the resolutions first. Mr. Attorney, please.
Madam Chair, the first resolution that we have for the agenda today is a resolution of the Opa-locka Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing the interim executive director and CRA attorney to conduct the purchase of properties located at 14401, 1441 Northwest 27th Avenue, Opa-locka, 33054, 391 Opa-locka Boulevard, and 879 Fisherman Street to include preparing title work to complete transactions, providing for conflict separability and an effective date.
Mr. Director.
Madam Chair, I do want to make a quick revision. On this resolution, we will be removing the properties 391 Opa-locka Boulevard and 879 Fisherman Street. So those 2 properties will be removed from this property acquisition piece. Now, for the item, this item is actually a resolution to authorize myself as well as the city attorney to engage in the acquisition process. As you are aware, this is actually outside of the scope of our
Mr.
current.
Director, can you all hear down here?
Not really. I can't.
Oh,
Okay, can you turn him up, move up to the mic a little bit, please?
Is this better?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So this resolution is actually looking at the authorization of the director as well as the city attorney, the CRA attorney, to look at the acquisition process for the 2 properties that are mentioned on this resolution. As you may be aware, the agreement that we have with our current legal services do not include property acquisitions within its scope of work. So what this resolution is doing is authorizing us to go into an agreement for those services. So it's not the actual execution of the agreement. It's to engage in those conversations with legal to move forward with that process. And then there is a cost to that that exceeds the amount of our normal services that we're being provided. And then with that, I'll allow Lee to kind of elaborate on that for further clarity.
Members of the board, this resolution essentially starts the process for the property acquisition, right? So we have to provide a budget for each transaction for you to consider. And we'd have to bring back the final agreements as well to you for approval. And you also have the process, the executive director also has to get quotes on the appraisal of the property, the prices of the property. But the actual transaction that we would be providing counsel is not a part of our general monthly 2,500 that we agreed to. So because it's out of scope, we have to bring it back to you. Our promise was to bring it back to you. Anytime there was an item that was outside the scope, this board has to approve going forward with that particular matter or transaction.
Okay, any concerns from the board? And before we move on, I want to apologize to the audience. We don't have agendas out in the audience so that you all will know where we are. But we apologize for tonight, but in the future, we'll make sure that agenda items are out front so that you all can follow along. So we apologize for that. Concerns from the board. Board Member Kelly.
Madam Chair, are we doing a motion second for discussion? How are we going to address this? Because I have questions, but is it on the floor yet for consideration of a vote, or is just general discussion?
Well, the director gave us some insight on the item, and the attorney was telling us, giving us his legal opinion as to why this is gonna have to be brought back. Well, not this item, but he's gonna bring back an invoice to us because paying for the attorney fees does not include land acquisition. So we haven't had it a motion or a second to start the discussion, but we could do that now. They were just giving us some upfront information.
I'm just trying to understand which process you're using, because normally you have the motion and second and let them present it and get discussion. I can go either way, it doesn't matter. So if you want to do discussion.
Okay,
Got
well,
the
we could
motion.
go ahead, someone can move it and then we can open up discussion.
Well, I'll move for discussion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay, moved by Board Member Kelly, second by Board Member Taylor for discussion. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I spoke to the director on this because I've had some challenges. So first of all, as I'm understanding, and he pointed out, the scope of service for our attorney does not even cover land acquisition. That's number one. So we need to deal with that going forward as part of the scope of services. Number two, the way I read the resolution is we're asking them, authorizing them to actually go ahead and start the process to acquire these properties with the mindset, and I know it's got to come back to the board, with the mindset inclusive of the cost from the attorney as well, which we don't know at this point. But I guess the first question I really want to ask, and maybe it was done and I wasn't here, so I will stand corrected. We decided to purchase these properties, but I don't see anything in our package that relates to that.
Mr. Director.
Through the chair, at our last meeting, these information was actually brought to us through the chair for the staff to actually look at these properties. But prior to us reviewing these properties, we must engage our legal team and go through that process to provide that information to the board or how much that additional service is going to cost before we even go down that road of acquisitions.
Well, if that's the case, Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
if that's the case, then we need, this resolution really needs to be about engaging the city attorney to include that scope before we even get to acquiring or even looking at purchasing properties. Even with the chair bringing it to you last meeting for whatever, we still should have had something and a part of our package of where these properties are, why we are potentially looking at them, et cetera. But before you get to that process, to me, we need to deal specifically with including that scope in the attorney's scope of services and what that's going to cost. Because you can't, to me, you can't deal with this resolution because it's basically saying go get the properties, bring it back to us, what it's going to cost, a whole lot of different things. It's like we're going ahead of ourselves. Yeah, and also the purchase of these properties. He did mention, you all mentioned in the meeting, so maybe I got to go back and look at the minutes or get the minutes as to why we're purchasing these properties in the first place. Because I asked for that in the my briefing, and I thought we would have gotten something before now, but when I got the packet, whatever, I didn't see anything. So that's my concern. I think we need to deal with the attorney and adding it to his scope of services that he even does this. And then while we're acquiring that, so the director needs to bring something that how it ties in before we go telling them to purchase the properties at whatever cost or whatever negotiation. I will listen to my colleagues, their thoughts, because they were here last meeting. I wasn't here to hear that, so maybe they can enlighten me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Board members?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
So, excuse me one second. So I do know that, I'm not sure if I was at that meeting. I think I was. We had a discussion on the potential of buying up the property. Unfortunately, no other information was provided to the board in terms of purchase price, other than these are the properties, titles, who owns it, what legal ramifications that would mean for us. Will we then own it? And then what would be our next steps as a CRA board with that property? It's one thing if we own property, but what are we going to do with it?
Mhm.
So here what I'm seeing is a resolution. I'm going to use Commissioner Bass's terms, putting the cart before the horse. And I think this seems to be the norm. There seems to be the norm of overextending, and I know Mr. Delane, there's always a global view that you have. We got to center the global, we have to center before the global. And I've had this conversation many times, you and I think so. If we talk about property, you have to give us as a board all the information. And so now we have a resolution that says to authorize the interim director to purchase the property. There was nothing, there's no discussion other than, oh, okay, that's a great idea. But there was nothing in between that. So I think when you place things on the agenda, you got to kind of go back and then ask yourself, does this make sense to place it on the agenda? Because there were a lot. So you're at C before we got to A and B. And A and B didn't happen. And so now you're at C, but that tends to be a theme. And I am not by no means, but that is a theme. And I just keep trying to say it repeatedly. And I feel like it's going on deaf ears. So this truly, and then second, more property was placed on this agenda item that we didn't even discuss. So I'm concerned, and I'm a little, I'm very concerned. So who's putting their eye on the agenda before it comes before us? I know it probably goes to the legal team. Is that correct? Or to the chair? before we see it? Okay,
You
so
can
I
finish and
just,
I'll answer.
okay, so there needs to be some type of fail safe for when we get these agenda items so that we know what should be here or not before we get them, because we would excuse a lot of the embarrassment that continues to happen on this dais if this doesn't happen. If we can stop this right now. But again, I'm gonna say C always happens before A and B. It has been the theme of this entire CRA for this year, and it just has to stop. Thank you.
Board Member Nikisha Williams, go ahead.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, can you guys hear me? Not really.
Here, have my mic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I will say that I echo every single thing that has been set up here. I want to add that in presenting this to the board, it would be great to see how this relates to our strategic plan. So understanding how does this play into our long-term plans? If you would have taken it, Mr. Chair, or I'm sorry, Mr. Director, and done some analysis of why we should purchase this and help us understand information about the property and why it makes sense, I think that would have given us a lot more information to make a decision, completely understanding that there are two steps in this process. We obviously have to have a resolution approving the attorney to move forward and do his work. But I think there's to member Veronica Williams' point, there's a whole step that you could have done in helping us understand why this is important, why it aligns to our strategic plan, and information about the property that will inform us with information that then we can take to make a decision. And so I just wanted to add that I think as we are presenting things like this, we have to align it back to our strategic plan. Thank you.
Anyone else before I go? Any other board members? To Board Member Williams, I meet with the director, interim director, and I always inform him the importance of meeting with every board member before the agenda is published. Everyone. So this is not, when you see items on the agenda, it's not the chair and the interim director, it's the board and the interim director. So when he sets his meetings with each board member, which he is encouraged to do every week, so that when things come to the agenda, even before the agenda is published, I call the interim director and ask him, have you met with every board member before this agenda is published? Sometimes, not always, sometimes he says that he's at a deadline. Mr. Director, what did you tell me your deadline was? For getting things on the agenda?
My deadline for getting things on the agenda and publishing is the Wednesday before the meeting.
Okay.
By our bylaws, it's 3 days before the meeting. I try to have it by 5.
Okay, and as chair, when I meet with you, whether it's 2 weeks out or 1 week out, do I vehemently encourage you to make sure before the agenda is published that you meet with every board member?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, anything else from the board?
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the comments. I did meet with the director in my briefing and expressed these concerns. And what I'm really saying is the item should not even been put on the agenda. And I explained to him because the attorney fees were not part of the scope, which is a item that should have been presented by itself. Because if we're going to be in the habit of maybe acquiring properties going forward, that needs to be established. In terms of, the urgency and deadlines, that's a staff, that's established. They need to deal with that. Or if they can't meet the deadline, don't put it on the agenda. Or if it's pressing, do it as an add-on and get majority consent. Because my opinion was it should not have been on here because to me, you need to deal with the fees and that part first. And then secondly, the whole package, seeing a picture of these properties. Why are we acquiring them? He indicated to me, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, that we would get more information. That was told Mr. Director to the chair.
Mr. Director.
Through the chair, that's correct.
See, and so I was waiting on the information. And I think we probably would have got it. So when I got here tonight, I was looking at some of the stuff on my desk and that wasn't it. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. To me, it should have been deferred as this is, and the only part we should have been dealing with, which we still got to deal with, if it's the board's will to acquire properties, is to deal with that part in the attorney's scope of services to be added going forward, whatever that looks like. And so that negotiation or discussion needs to take place with whomever is, I guess, a director negotiating with our CRE attorney on what that would be, bring it back to the board. So that's a separate item from this. But I did meet with him and he said information was going to be coming for the meeting. Obviously, as one of my colleagues mentioned, this is all we have. I couldn't support just this with just addresses anyway. And but I did meet with him. And I made it a habit to try to start meeting with him and express those concerns in advance. So to me, I would suggest this item be deferred, but we as a board direct exec director to meet with attorney so that scope of services, which would be inclusive in this agreement for acquiring properties that's not there, be included, that can be brought to the board for approval. So at least that part is set. And secondarily, as you heard the comments from my colleagues and myself, going forward, if we're going to purchase, give us the information beforehand. How does this fit in? Here's what I'm thinking. He can do that in a meeting. We're thinking about acquiring it because this, what do you think, whatever. You're going to have those discussions in the meetings, but having nothing in front of us, you're going to get it. We didn't get it. Well, I didn't get it. Well, we didn't get it, so.
Well, I don't think Board Member Kelly that anyone got, and it was given to the interim director as to what needed to be done, and every board member. And in the last meeting, if my memory serves me right, I think the only one that was not present here at the time was you. I think everybody else, when you were not here either, when we discussed looking at the properties is what was stated in the last meeting, that we would like to look at the properties. So that's, I'll say it again. That's why it's so important for board members to meet with the interim director ahead of time so that you could give him your input. And, you know, he has the input from everyone, as you said, Board Member Kelly, before he moves forward with putting together the agenda. Because we have a month in between times, in between meetings, that we could have that discussion. Mr. Director, how would you like to, at the will of the board, how do you want to move?
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
First, I want to thank the board for their comments and feedback. I think at this time, you know, with the comments that have been received, I've taken notes, and I think at this moment, we should pull the item and defer it for the next meeting, and we'll do it in a two-pronged process, to where the first item will be, once I have a discussion with the attorney, I'll provide the agreement for the actual process, which will include the number amount that will be allocated for those particular services. Then the next item will be a revised packet that includes everything from the property acquisition, the property information, how it ties into the CRA plan. That way the board can make a sound decision on that process.
Madam Chair, just want to add, based on what Board Member Williams said, I think that the board may want to consider a broader process, maybe something before A and B. Board Member Williams, right? That's what I'm hearing you're saying, because you're given the last meeting, we gave direction to pursue looking at these two properties, but I think that what I'm hearing from Board Member Williams is a more substantive analysis as to how this property fits into our acquisition plan or strategic plan, some more background information. Then once we identify the properties, there's a price which determines the attorney's fees, if you're familiar with real estate in terms of the title work and and other, and also appraisal, process for appraising the properties as well. So I think that there's a broader discussion as to properties that would potentially be acquired or sold in the future. What would you like the director, would you like to have him proceed? And then the different parties that are responsible for helping support the director to do that will fall into place, right? So what is the policy for acquisition or sale of properties? What information would you like to see going forward? That's what I'm hearing. I don't know if that discussion preceded me or us, but have we had that discussion, Madam Chair?
I don't know whether you had the discussion with us as a board, but I know that when we were in the process of hiring an attorney, that was one of the questions that was discussed on the board as to scope of services outside of that scope that was involved in the contract. So it was discussed with the board at that time. And also, I know that when myself and the director, when we met for our meeting, that was also discussed that, so that's why I encouraged him, make sure before this was published that you meet with each board member to have a discussion on this item and to give an outline of why do you think the property is necessary? Because in the previous meeting, when it was discussed, the ones that were here thought it was a good piece of property to look at, and it was prime land. I think is one of the comments that was made. So we've asked, I think what you've said and what the director is going to do, and with the comments from the board, he has again his orders as to how to move. And Mr. Director, it's in your hands to move according to the will of the board. And again, make sure that every board member has a meeting and that you document when you meet with those board members and what their comments are to make sure that they're answered.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I wanted to know, why is it that the other two properties were taken off the resolution? The two addresses, it was three, right? And we're going forth with one?
You directing
To
the
three, yes,
director?
thank you.
Okay, because I didn't
Thanks.
put them on there. Mr. Director.
Madam Chair, to Board Member Bass. So these items were also included in the conversation that we had at the last meeting. However, looking at, let's, again, not putting the cart before the horse, but also looking at properties that we can tangibly acquire. I did look at the opportunity to pull back a couple of properties, focus on these two first, go through that process, and then if it's the will of the board, bring those items back. But we need to create a process to start going after these properties in the first place. And that's what we're doing here now.
I don't know whether did your question get answered, Board Member Bass?
Well, yes and no. I basically wanted to know why those two properties were drawn from the resolution. That was it. Because it's three in there, correct? Originally.
Through the chair, it was two originally.
Four?
It was four. It's four specific properties.
Mhm.
Two of them are by the same owner. The first two are two separate owners. So I took off the second option because that's a completely different owner that owns those two lots.
And that's the only reason why it was withdrawn?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thanks.
Madam Chair?
Now I'm
Oh,
confused.
I'm so sorry.
Now, what, just 1 second. Go ahead, Board Member Kelly, because now
Thank you. I just want to, I heard all the comments. I just want to be clear that when it comes back, the first thing that we need to address as a board is adding the scope of services to the attorney's agreement. In terms of the properties, acquisition and all of that, that's to me secondary. The first piece we deal with is including this in the scope of services for the CRE attorney and what that cost is going to be. and how broad we're going to make it as a board. That's the first step to me. We making that scope very broad, or we limiting it to certain pieces. Because when you get into land acquisition, as the attorney mentioned, there's a lot of pieces to that.
Pieces, yes.
So if we're going to do that, we need to make sure that's inclusive in that scope, what that cost is going to be. So to me, that's the first thing needs to be done before we get to any authorizing or even looking at properties, regardless of where they are. To me, that's the first step. So I just want to put that on record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, I think I saw someone else, hand over here, or someone else wanted to speak.
No, Commissioner Kelly said what I was gonna say.
Okay, all right.
I had a-
Board Member Williams,
I had a quick
Veronica.
question. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Commissioner Kelly, thank you. My next question, Mr. Delane. We all agree that property acquisition is a great thing to have, especially, in the day and age that we live in. What was your goal? What was your end goal for acquiring the property?
Through the chair. So
Yes.
as we're looking at this, this is a conversation that I was to have with the board once we evaluate this in the plan. This is to initiate the conversation of looking at these properties and then looking at the plan as once we acquire prior to acquiring a property, what is our outlook in terms of that process? Either we're gonna look at, managing the property, pulling the property for sale, or anything of that nature. That's just to start that conversation.
So that's the point I'm making. You get it? The point I'm making is you wanted to purchase property and then have the conversation about what to do with it. You understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is, as a board, we have to dissect that and have a strategic plan with what the end goal is. We have to do it ASAP, because if we're going to now go into a commitment to purchase it, and we know it's not going to be overnight, but we have to have an end goal. I always say backwards plan, goal, and then what are those steps to get there? So that's all I'm saying. You said it because you said as a board, we're going to discuss. We have to have those discussions now so that when it's ready to land, we know exactly what we're going to do with it. Okay, you understand? Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
So, following up to what, Mr. Attorney said, and part of what he's asking for is, and I think this is what you're also saying, Mr. Delane, is we need a process to figure out how we
Yes.
go about this. So I would like to recommend that, as part of what you bring back to the board, there is some analysis on your part that talks about how it aligns with our strategic plan. Would love for you to develop some type of property overview. And I know that there's some information that you won't be able to access, but there's also some information that you will be able to access. And you bringing that back to us would be helpful for us to make a decision. Would love to see a timeline as much as possible, right? Again, understanding that some of this, like, there are variables that we don't know, but I think that there's a simple timeline that you could develop. Also budget consideration. So one of the things that I did mention to you when you and I had our meeting was, well, where is this going to come out of the budget? And if you present that to us up front, then we have the information so we can have a discussion. And then lastly, I think including intended usage of the property, right? So what's your short and long-term plan? And you bring this to us as a board. This is showing that you are doing your due diligence. You've got a plan. You bring it to us. We've got something in front of us. Then we can discuss that and help push it forward.
Thank you, Board Member Williams, Nikisha, and all of our board members for that input. And I know that the interim director is taking notes, and he's going to be moving forward with the recommendation. Did I miss anyone?
No, Madam Chair, I
Okay.
just want to remove my motion.
Okay, motion removed by Board Member Kelly. Who second?
Same.
Okay, okay. The item is being pulled, and Mr. Director, you got the sentiments of the board.
Loud and clear.
Okay, and please do us a favor and document your meetings with each board member.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Like, in the words of Commissioner Kelly, we love the passion. We love the passion. Next item,
Next item is item number 4, a resolution of the Opa-locka Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing the interim executive director to enter into an agreement with Blueprint Creative Group for public relations and marketing services in an amount not to exceed $75,000 and as set forth in Exhibit A, providing for incorporation of recitals and an effective date.
someone needs to move the item.
Move it for discussion.
Second.
Moved by Board Member Taylor, second by, who seconded? Who seconded the item? Board Member, Veronica Williams, second. Mr. Director?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item is looking at the CRA being provided services for our marketing and public relations. Looking at opportunities to begin to expand the outreach of the agency for the work that we do in the community. I worked on this item extensively with Board Member Veronica Williams, and we worked together to vet 3 qualified organizations. And through our recommendation, we are recommending the firm Blueprint Creative Group, who is based out of South Florida, a minority woman-owned company, who is well-versed in marketing and public relations work with multiple municipalities in South Florida as well as nationwide. I have their CEO, Ms. Fabiola, on the line as well, available for questioning. That is the recommendation of the board. The recommendation of staff through board member in tandem with Board Member Veronica Williams.
Concerns from the board, questions, comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
did I hear the attorney reading the record 75,000? That's the amount?
To the attorney,
Yes.
That was the number it's in the,
Okay, the amount that I was told by the director of mine briefing was 40,000.
Through the chair.
yes, sir.
That is correct. That is a change that I need to make to the resolution, that looking through the proposal, the amount is actually $40,700. So that is a scrivener's error on the resolution.
Mr. Director, before it was read into the records, it should have been corrected with the attorney before it was read. Mr. Attorney, how do we move?
you can just correct it for the record, based on what the representation from the director. Let's make a new motion for a new resolution for the change in the amount.
So the amount is to read 40,000.
Well, the resolution already says up to 75,000. So after a motion and a second, the board has the liberty to discuss the item and also to make the amendments as needed.
Okay, so it's not to exceed, Board Member Kelly, is not to exceed 75,000.
Madam Chair?
Yes, yes, sir.
What I was told was not to exceed 40,700. That's what I was told in my briefing, because it's obviously, I gotta start missing these meetings and get here. Okay, what I was basically told was you ought to discuss marketing, et cetera. And I said $75,000 a lot for basically 6 months. So I was told that it's down to $40,700. So that's why when the attorney read 75,000, I'm questioning it because I was told a different number. First of all, so that's why I want to be clear what the number is. I know it says not to exceed, but it's a big difference not to exceed 75,000, not to exceed 40,700. So the director is changing it or whatever, back to the 75, not to exceed. I need to know that too. I'm only going by what I was told in my briefing. So I just need clarity. Cause y'all, I mean, I understand y'all discussed it at the last meeting about marketing, et cetera, so. I apologize for having to play catch up, but that's what I was told in my briefing.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair.
Before, Board Member Williams. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we revise this so that is, let's say, up to $50,000, which is actually what is budgeted in our
Budget.
in our budget. So it gives us, just in case there's we decide to do something extra. And I mean, right now it adds up to 40,700, but knowing that we've allocated $50,000 for this, I would just maybe make a recommendation that we make an amendment to say up to $50,000.
Okay, so, someone else had a comment before we move on that?
No, that's what I was gonna recommend as well, based on what the attorney was saying, that we have the power to amend the resolution. So just do it up to $50,000, which is what it's already budgeted for.
Okay. So someone needs to make a friendly amendment to the item?
She
I'm
just
sure.
made it.
That's what I'm
I'll
saying.
second
She made the,
I'll
Okay.
second.
if you're making that as a motion?
Yes.
Can you please?
I'd like to make a motion to amend this resolution to read up to $50,000.
And I'll second it, ma'am.
Okay, motion to amend the resolution is made by Board Member Nikisha Williams, second by Board Member Taylor.
Discussion?
Before we do the roll call, we need to put the amendment on, and you want to discuss it before?
I want to discuss the amendment.
You want to discuss the amendment?
Right.
Okay, go ahead, Board
Thank
Member.
you, Madam Chair. I don't like sitting in briefings, meetings, and then the board can amend amounts. But when I met with the director, 40,007 was told to me based, I thought, on discussion with the firm or whoever, that it was agreed upon. So, Madam Chair, to the director, did that change? Because I thought that was what, according to my briefing, you said that that's what had been, I guess, discussed, and it was 40,700. That had been negotiated, or you had talked to the firm, what have you. So did that change?
Well, Board Member Kelly, I think that the number that you had in your briefing is correct, right? The agreement that's going to come back to this board for final approval will be that number, with the caveat through Board Member Williams that could be extended up to $50,000, but that would be the number that should be in the agreement.
Well, but my
If I'm
challenge,
listening.
Madam Chair, to the attorney, my challenge is, if you give me one thing in the meeting, in the briefing, if you're going to change that, I'd like to know. I know the board can make recommendations on the floor in terms of the amount, but the director in my briefing gave me the assumption he had already discussed with the firm, came up with this number that they would agree to, and he felt was sufficient to do what needed to be done over the next 6 months. And so if that's going to be the case where you negotiate, come up with something and still change it, then why, I mean, just, okay, you know what? Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, Madam Chair,
The will of the board.
Madam Chair, can I just add what I see as maybe some hopeful, I can hopefully clear this up. So on page 79, these numbers do add up to the 40,700. I think the issue is that what is in the resolution says 75,000. And I think that's what's throwing everyone off. And so hopefully this amendment will help resolve that. But when you add these numbers up based on what has been put before us, it absolutely does add up to 40,700.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am. Board Member Veronica Williams.
thank you. So I hear all the sides, but the truth be told, in our briefing, it was 40,700. That, I mean, like literally, I myself, the interim directors, like we worked, we vetted, where I'm a little, I don't know what the word is, disappointed, is that I thought we were going to now talk about why we chose this company what were some of the things that we thought were the best choices of this company. I thought maybe we could, I don't know, there could have been like a PowerPoint slide or two or something that, and now we're doing this, this hamster in the wheel dance again. So if you tell us one thing and then it's something else, and I totally appreciate the amendment, but I would like to stick to the 47. No more, no less, because if we were going to do 50, I don't understand why that just wasn't initial. If $50,000 was already budgeted, it should have just said 50. I'm not sure how, is that a Scribner's error again? I don't know.
Well, are you directing your question to,
It's a
board
rhetorical
member,
question.
uh,
It's a rhetorical question. It doesn't
Okay.
need an answer, but I'm just saying it was
Well-
told to every last one of us. So I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to stick to my guns, and it's going to be 47, and that's it. I'm sorry, because if it was going to be 50, it should have been 50. Sorry.
Madam Chair.
Before you, answer, Mr. Director, in the conversation, with the firm, in the conversation that you had with the firm, that was the agreed upon amount up to 47, or this is what I need clarity on. In the conversation with the firm, was it up to 47 or is it 47 for 6 months?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
so what was provided to staff and what has been provided to the board is
Yes.
a proposal
and I
of the
looked at.
amount. It is
Okay, I
nothing
read
that
it.
was agreed to from staff or a member of the board. This was just a proposal of services. And then we talked them into a 6-month agreement that could be reviewed by the board within 6 months. No dollar figure was agreed to with the firm that we're recommending. As in the 40,000 was an agreed number. It was proposed that that is what their scope of services will entail.
Mr. Director, I don't want to, I know we have on the line, I know that we have the firm on the line, and we don't want to carry this out long and make it look not make it look good. So I'm going to I'm going to go along with the recommendation of the amendment up to, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be spending $50,000 on advertisement for 6 months. That's my anticipation, that there will be invoices that will be coming to the board before the work is done, and then the board will approve. And this is just the firm that we're choosing to go with. And is that my understanding? I'm asking, Mr. Director.
That is correct.
Okay.
Wait, Madam Chair. Okay, so.
Let me, before you go, Board Member Taylor, the reason why is because we keep saying up to. We keep saying up to. So I know that something was negotiated, because if something was not we had to get to this firm some kind of way. So something was negotiated. The interim director just informed us that a dollar amount was not set upon, was not negotiated. Just the firm was negotiated. So Board Member Nikisha made a recommendation of up to $50,000, which is what is in the what is budgeted. So I'm saying that, are we talking about we're gonna pay them $50,000 over 6 months? Are we gonna pay them $47,000 over 6 months? Or we keep saying up to? So go ahead, Board Member Taylor, because I need clarification on that.
Okay, from what I'm looking at in this packet, the $6,200 per month is the retainer fee for the for the marketing firm. And then if we want them to do web design, there will be an additional cost on top of, I believe that's, if I'm not mistaken, 30-something thousand dollars. And then if we want to do
34 for the,
30-something thousand, if we want them to do a website or web design, there'll be an additional $3,500 on top of that $30-something thousand. If I'm not right. I mean, if I know I'm right on that one. But what you're talking about, which as it relates to invoices and everything like that, I don't think based on what I read, that includes printing, that includes, or is, because based on what the
ask a
chair was
question.
saying, that was a question. She
Uh-huh.
said there will be invoices. So does the invoices are up to the 62, or I think that's where you need to clarify. Mr.
That's what I'm
Delane.
trying to get
So is
clarity
that
on.
is that a retainer fee, or is that the you know what? Yeah, can we go with Commissioner Williams's idea and ask them to just explain their scope of work and what they're bringing to the city of Opa-locka instead of us assuming? I think that would be much better. Yeah, and let them just do the presentation. That way we know. She said the lady's on the line, no? If you don't mind, Madam Chair. 'Cause-
Hello,
you.
good evening. I am on the line.
I'm sorry, I cut him.
Thank
Your
you
mic,
for
your
the
mic.
respect.
Do I have your permission to proceed?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Fabiola Florenville, CEO of Blueprint Creative Group. And so for a point of clarity, and I'll go ahead and just probably take 2 minutes just explaining the scope of work. But for a point of clarity, what we discussed was a proposal for a 6-month phase 1 to focus on community development, business engagement, and that was the $37,200. If website services were needed, that would be an additional $3,500. For a point of clarity, the only reason why $75,000 came into discussions is only because there are different phases to the proposal. So if you look ahead to phase 2 and phase 3, there are different numbers there that obviously are not part of this first 6 month. That was because that was what was initially presented. And then when the interim director came back and we tailored it, then it got customized to what you're seeing now as the phase 1. To briefly just review the scope of work, as mentioned, it focuses on deepening the CRA's presence, particularly within the business community. So we would focus first on building a business directory, capturing all of the area businesses, which we've already done already. We have a directory of Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach businesses, but it doesn't focus on just businesses within the city. So this directory would be a full-on directory that you can search on by mobile, browser. It helps to essentially create a presence. And it's also an opportunity and platform for the CRA to engage businesses through technology. You know, there are different ways to have businesses be engaged in marketing workshops, small business growth, digital marketing, et cetera. It creates value for the businesses there so that in the long run, it also positions the CRA as being a friend to the business community and also to attract other businesses, not just locally, but regionally, and those who are already looking at South Florida to call home. So that's the premise of the directory. Another component of it would be a door-to-door campaign. We've done this for the city of North Miami and a couple of other municipalities. This is an opportunity to further engage businesses because I know oftentimes small businesses are disconnected from what's happening municipally and also are not as responsive, you know, so being able to put a face to it, to be able to engage personally, to be able to take inventory of the local businesses, to speak with them and learn about what their challenges are, what type of opportunities they'd like to be involved in. I think that creates opportunity as well. This would also be important on the resident side. You know, resident engagement, being able to see that the CRA is actively involved from an economic development perspective with growing the capacity of local businesses, which ultimately sells the story of boosting the local economy, creating jobs, and et cetera, and et cetera. The only additional items that could present additional costs would be, for example, if the CRA were to say, we want to do an advertising campaign. We know that there are direct costs involved with that, right? So that's for discussion. We don't take a commission on any media buys or anything like that. That would be billed directly at whatever the final cost is. Typically, media provides a 15% discount, which would typically be a commission. That discount would be absorbed by the CRA, essentially, instead of paying the commission out. Those would be the only expenses outside, which is why the up to language kind of provides some margin and some room for that. As an example, let's say if the CRA were to promote a workshop, we want to do some radio buys on Hot 105 or any other media outlets, then that could be an opportunity to be able to do so. Essentially, it's about creating community within the business structure, promoting economic development, the work of the CRA, positioning to residents and the businesses that the CRA is actively present, actively involved in growing the local economy, supporting activities that help to grow businesses that will ultimately help to create more jobs. And then phase two and any additional phases, if the decision were to continue, would lead to more economic development focused work, which we do on a national level as well.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir. Board Member Kelly.
well, you know, I'm just a Bible study, so I'm all in now, so.
All in. Get on in there. Jump right in there. Come on, jump right in there,
Yeah,
Commissioner
jump
Kelly.
I thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate you clarifying some of the points, but it just made it a lot more challenging for me because I heard you mention some numbers, 37,000, et cetera. But the number we were given were 40,700. So I guess the director, where's that?
Okay, so for clarity, it's 37,200. And I mentioned in the proposal, it says if website redesign services are needed, that's an additional 3,500. I have not been able to confirm if that's the service that the CRA would like to move forward with. So the total is $40,700 with the website redesign included. If you remove the website redesign, then it's the 37,000 number, 37,200 to be exact.
Okay, thank you. And that, okay, Mr. Director, I'll let you weigh in a second. It seems that your proposal, and again, I apologize because I wasn't here last meeting discussion. It seems your marketing or your proposal is geared really heavily to the business side, creating connection with the business, not so much on the residential, although obviously at some point they connect. When you mentioned about workshops, about promoting on various venues, and that's kind of where I'm having my challenge for $30-some thousand. But I'll listen to my colleague. But Madam Chair, if the director could explain that. So your 40,700 was based on the website design included into the 32,000 that the firm mentioned. Madam Chair, to the director.
Yes, sir, Mr. Director, your answer.
Through the chair, Board Member Kelly, that is correct. That was inclusive of all of the services, just so you have a ballpark range of the max that they were affording at this time within this proposal.
Well, okay, so according to what the presentation just made, there was 32, whatever that amount, and if you add some more, which included web design, then it gets us up to this 40,700.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, so it would have been nice, first of all, to see that breakdown of how we got to just to the 40, because we've been kind of going back, exceeding whatever. So this is really a flat rate based on your discussions and or negotiation.
That's correct, sir.
And may I kindly ask that I respond to your last comment? So it's not just those things that I mentioned. If you look throughout the entire proposal, residents are engaged because part of marketing is to engage the entire community, and you do so through multiple ways, right? So emails, email campaigns, newsletters. How do we get the word out? How are we distributing alerts about what's happening in the city and the CRA? Media, press releases, all these different opportunities to engage. Even with building the business directory, that has to be promoted to residents as well, to say, here's a resource presented to you by the CRA and the board to help you identify and support local businesses in your community. Here's different ways to engage with this business directory. So it creates value on both ends, and it promotes supporting the home base. So there's a lot more opportunities that come out of it than just the directory and the website. It's a marketing proposal to help elevate the profile of the CRA and ultimately the city, and to distribute messages to the community as well. That in itself lends itself to showing that the CRA is active and present as an economic contributor to the South Florida community. Ultimately, that helps to be able to create targeted industry promotion, whether it's in aviation or any other sector. And it helps to direct when businesses are first looking at South Florida, giving them a better bird's eye view of all the different areas that they could consider, including the city of Opa-locka and within the CRA boundaries. So it's about elevating and creating awareness about the CRA and the resources that's available. And then hopefully have that lead into greater economic impact.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me just say this because this is on the amendment. I'm not going to support the amendment for 50. I'll support 40,700 only because that's the number that was given. We do need to have some marketing done, and it's only for 6 months, so I'm willing to see where it goes. I know there's proposals, different phases, but I can support 40,700, inclusive of that website design and all of that, but not the amendment, which is what this discussion is all around, which is 50,000. So I'll just put it on the record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So we had the amendment that we were discussing the amendment, right? So you all want to go ahead and vote on the amendment, or you want to amend the amendment?
Well,
What do you want to do? It's the will of the board.
it was,
Board Member Williams,
yeah.
friendly withdrawal consideration so that Board Member Kelly can make a friendly new resolution. Yeah.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I will make a friendly withdrawal.
Okay, all right. Board Member Kelly, you're gonna
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I would just go back and it's 40,700, which we were told in our briefing for the 6 months for the marketing firm, and that's my motion.
motion on the floor to
I'll second.
second by Board Member Taylor. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have a resolution of the CRA authorizing the interim executive director to enter into an agreement with Blueprint Creative Group for public relations and marketing services in an amount not to exceed 40,700. There's a motion and a second.
Any other discussion?
Can we call the question?
Any other discussion? Call the question, please, Madam Clerk.
Chair Russell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Williams,
Yes.
Board Member Taylor,
Yes.
Board Member Irvin,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Bass,
Yes.
Board Member Kelly,
Yes,
Board Member Veronica Williams,
Yes.
Madam Chair, I don't mean to, but I just need to get clarity. Normally, when you're voting, the chair votes last. Mr. Attorney, I know we could do it any kind of way, but is our bylaw set up? You can do it any kind of way? I just, normally the chair votes last on any item. I've seen it happen twice tonight. We can talk about it later, never mind.
Okay, we'll,
Madam Chair,
we,
I have this, I'm so sorry. I have said it repeatedly. It should rotate. I'm constantly called on last, and that's why a few meetings ago, I said, is the clerk giving, are they having these trainings? And I was told they were, so I'm just like, I'm sorry, maybe I'm just.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
who said that?
I have a question, Chair Russell.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
By rotating, I have to switch the names every time? Is that what she's saying? Because she's saying she's last. I'm not understanding. If you guys can clarify.
I'm going to direct this question to the director, the interim director. Mr. Director, did the staff have the training with the city clerk? The city clerk, Ms. Flores?
Madam Chair, they have, but I will get back with my staff and we'll go through the procedures to make sure that they're corrected at the next meetings.
Okay, Ms. Kim, the director is going to get with you and make sure that it's done properly, because we've said this several times in several meetings, and I don't want us to go over it again. So Mr. Director will get with you and inform you. Thank you, Board Member Kelly, for bringing it up. Where are we on the agenda? Number 5. Okay.
So Madam Chair, item number 5 was actually deferred for discussion, as we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay. I'm gonna ask if, Mr. Director, if I could, take the chair's privilege, if it's okay with the board, and ask the director to, let's not discuss this item tonight, but for you to go back and have a meeting with each board member and bring us back a resolution that after you've discussed it with each board member, let's not discuss this item tonight. If that's the will of the board, can we do that tonight, please?
Well, I met with him already, so. He knows fully how I feel about it, but I don't mind deferring it. If he needs to meet again.
Yes, sir. I think, Mr. Director, it would be prudent if you met with each board member again and then bring us back a recommendation that's favorable. Because it's your call as the interim director. And okay, all right. I don't want to I'm going to say this. Board members, please, we made Mr. Delane the interim director. Before we voted on that item, I asked us as a board member to let's put some policies and procedures in place for Mr. Delane. And we need to make sure that we do that quickly, so that gives him some guidelines to follow and gives us some merits that we could hold him accountable to. Because if you don't give some direction on how you're gonna hold staff accountable, we really have kind of nothing to go on. So if we could please, as a board, put some guidelines in place to to direct Mr. Delane
Madam Chair,
as to what we're looking for to accomplish. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Board Member Kelly, yes, sir.
what that has something to do with number 5? Or are you just making a general statement?
I'm making a general
Oh,
statement,
okay.
general statement. We need to put some guidelines in place.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, Mr. Director.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
So the next item is the director's report. On that is 3 discussion points or 3 updates. The first one is included in your packet, which is the update for the rental and mortgage assistance program.
That's a part of our packet, or is that one of the add-on documents that you gave us?
It's on page 86 of your packet.
Okay, go ahead.
So at this time, I would like to update that we do have 16 rentals and 2 mortgages that are with the state right now. In my conversation with them yesterday, we should have approvals within the next week or so. And the total amounts are right now for rentals, $37,187. And then for mortgages, $3,033.09. I'll be providing the board an update once those funds have been received from the state to ensure that they've been properly allocated to the applicants.
Any questions for the interim director concerning the mortgage and rental assistance? Board Member Irving, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't missed a meeting yet, so, but maybe this went over my head. I didn't see anything about eviction assistance. I never remember us doing a maximum of $6,000. Maybe I missed that. I don't know. It says eviction assistance will not exceed first, last, and deposit or minimum of 6,000, a maximum of 6,000. I remember us increasing it to 3,000, but I don't remember having a conversation about 6,000.
So as I'm reading, the update is a consideration that has been presented to the board. However, I do want to withhold that because I would like to have the consultant speak to that. However, the consultant was not available for today, so I'll withhold this update on this item.
I'm sorry.
As in for the actions to consider, this is for the board's review and consideration based off of the recommendations from the consultant. However, it's not an action that will be taken unless the board actually reviews that item.
Okay, so this is here for us to approve tonight or something?
No,
No,
it's
no.
not to approve.
He's just discussing it. He's saying, and for us to consider it in future.
That's
for-
correct. For future rollouts of the rental mortgage program.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am, Board Member Williams.
I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused because our rental and mortgage assistant program is on the street right now. So just so I understand, is this the application that is currently being used or is there a different application?
This is the revised application. It has not been released to the street. It's being presented to the board right now, so the board can review it.
So you're asking us to review and vote on this today, or you just want us to review and
No,
give you?
this is just to review with feedback. We're talking about 2 different things. I provided an update and I was gonna get to, we have a revised application that the board had requested us to review and provide updates to.
Madam Chair. So
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
so one of the things that's difficult about reviewing this application is that we don't have the previous application in front of us to actually see what changes are being made, or, you know, what's different about this one versus what is currently in place. And so if you'd like to talk through those things for us and narrate that, that would be helpful, but otherwise.
Madam Chair, I, if I may.
I'm sorry, Board Member Irvin had the floor. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Board Member Irvin.
Responding to Board Member Williams over there, the original application was about 25 pages long with the repeat stuff on every 3 pages. So this is definitely much better than the previous application. It's actually, it's a book. It's a Bible. FYI, that's all.
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry, I'm finished.
okay.
Yes.
Board Member Williams, you had okay, continue, Mr. Director.
Madam Chair. On the,
Yes, sir.
oh, thank you. On the, I had no protocol, on the, application and this bullet point under the direct report. Did I understand them say that we're waiting on, final approval from the state for the funds to be released? Well, not released, before we can disperse the funds, and we anticipate that pretty soon or soon?
Mr. Director.
Through the chair, Board Member Kelly, yes. After I've spoken with the state, actually on yesterday, we should be receiving the funds within the next week or so.
Okay, did you indicate to them that we were looking at possibly changing the application because of the size and the challenge with residents trying to fill it out, and whether that would have an impact going forward with future allocations and approval?
Board Member Kelly, that is correct. We're actively working with the state to provide updated documentation, and we've been working with the state every step of the way to make sure that happens.
Is that a yes or no?
That is a yes.
Okay, because part of the challenge that I'm challenged that it's taking this long for the state to give the okay, because apparently we are not submitted information timely, et cetera, so forth, that it's taking this long on both CRA and city. So I'm glad that we've caught up now and they're fully up to speed and giving us the okay. We'll see where that goes. So with what you provided for us tonight, are we to look at it as my colleagues were asking to make any suggestions, recommendations? And then this is going to come back to be voted on as the new application form. Is that your intent by presenting it to us tonight as a part of our package?
That is correct.
And when you anticipate bringing it back by next month, next meeting, special meeting?
By the next meeting. By the next meeting.
Next regular meeting?
That is correct.
So that's the June, that would be June meeting?
Yes, sir.
So I mean, we're still using the old one until then. The old form. Madam Chair, to the back.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or concerning the application?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you. To Mr. Delane, just to refresh my memory, how are we putting this out into the community?
Through the chair, Board Member Bass, that is one of the functions of why we brought on a marketing PR firm to assist us with outreach. So with the door hangers, with the email blasts, with the social media posts, we're looking to engage with our residents in ways that the CRA has had challenges previously, and we're looking to move forward with that now that we are looking to have a marketing firm on board.
May I continue?
Yes, you have the floor.
I heard your answer, and to me, that is not current. That is to be. So my question is, what are we doing now?
Currently, we have it on our website.
Mhm.
We have advertised it through the city in tandem with the cities having their the application out on the street as well. I know that previously we have visited different functions. However, we do need to improve on our outreach due to the fact that we've had challenges previously.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
to Mr. Delaney. We still have the old applications online.
That is correct.
We made corrections to the old application,
No,
mortgage application.
because
so
they
it
haven't been
still
approved by
says-
this board.
So it still says it still has North Miami on it? Thank you.
Madam Chair, wasn't there someone else online you had, Mr. Delane? I think you mentioned earlier about Ms. Dorset. Is she there? Is that one of your bullet points or? I know okay,
First of all, who's Mrs. Dorset?
yeah, I'm just curious what, you mentioned it, but we're not.
So they were my next points on my director's report.
Okay, he had not gotten to that yet.
Okay.
Board Member Williams. Okay,
I'm
we-
sorry. One more time.
Yes,
Madam
go
Chair.
ahead. Go ahead, Board Member Irvin.
I'm kind of stuck. Are we reviewing the application tonight to make corrections or whatever? Am I correct or no? This is gonna come back. We're gonna make corrections and bring it back to you, or what are we doing as far as that's concerned?
So this documentation was provided to the board in totality and to review it. And when we have our one-on-one briefings, I will get your feedback. So when we come back at the next board meeting, those changes will be updated and provided to the board for a vote. But I'll have briefings with each one of the board members to review those corrections prior to it being on the next agenda.
I hear you. I can't necessarily agree with you, but I hear until, okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
I think, Mr. Director, what, Board Member Irving is saying that application that was brought to your attention previously that's online needs to be removed with those inaccurate, errors on there. And that's just a matter of, you don't have to bring that back to the board to approve it. It has some grammatic errors. The city of North Miami, it needs to be removed from the web page and put the new one on there with the city of Opa-locka. That should have been done immediately when it was brought to our attention and also the attention of the person that we are contracted to do the consulting with. As soon as that was brought to your attention and the attention of the consultant, it should have been brought to the attention of IT that needs to be removed. And I think that's what Board Member Irvin is trying to say, that, you know, she brought it to your attention and that nothing was done about it. So that needs to be removed immediately from the website and corrections made. They're just typo errors, and put the correct application online, please.
Will do.
Okay, if there's nothing else on that next item, please.
Sorry, just so that I'm understanding what you're saying to Mr. Delane, you're telling him to pull the application that's online now and replace it with this one?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay,
I'm telling him to make the correction. The application that's online, if you saw the application online,
Mhm.
it says the city of North Miami.
correct.
That's a error,
Mhm.
a typo error. Pull that one off, make the correction, put the city of Opa-locka, and place it back online. That could be
Okay.
done within an hour.
Understood.
You
Thank
know, get with IT, and I'm quite sure they will work with you on to make sure that that's done immediately. Board Member Irving, does that
Yes,
satisfy?
Madam Chair.
Okay, all right, Mr. Director, go ahead.
To IT, is Ms. Dorset still online? All right. Yes, so the next item is the CRA is looking to launch the Plant Pay and Pay program. This is a home renovation program that was actually approved by the board back in fiscal year 2022. And then it was brought back in our previous budget, in our current budget for fiscal year 2023 for $100,000. This is an opportunity for us to assist our residents with home renovation projects within the CRA area. And I included within this packet the development incentive list that lists out that particular project under item number 5 on page 91.
Go ahead, you can continue.
Okay, I also have reached out to an organization that has worked with municipalities on these projects before and has worked with the city of Opa-locka. I have on the line Miss Debbie Dorset, the CEO at the executive director at Greater Miami Service Corps. Where we've looked at an opportunity of working together to execute this project. So if she's available, Miss Debbie Dorset.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Executive Director and board members. I
Good
hope you all are well. My name is Debbie Dorset, Executive Director of the Greater Miami Service Corps. And I'm just here to briefly share about the services that we've provided within Opa-locka in 2021-22. We partnered with City of Opa-locka to do a summer right turn program as well as housing beautification. And with that, we selected residents within the community. We painted their homes. We did landscaping for the residents. And for one of the veterans within the area, we did a mobility ramp. So definitely we have experience in doing these services. We've done it for definitely more than 15 years, and we are available to support the CRA in implementing their program.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Director, anything else? Anyone have any questions? Anything else?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Board Member Kelly.
Thank you. I see within the packet a MOU. Is that MOU based on currently starting? This
Through the-
program or starting this partnership?
Through the chair, this is just to review the scope of services that will be provided. This is not to be voted on. It's just to give the board an idea of what it would look like in terms of services being provided for this program with the Greater Miami Service Corps.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair
Yes, Board Member Veronica.
Williams, I wanted to just go back. The Greater Miami Service Corps was extremely instrumental when we received COVID funds in helping our seniors in terms of the rehab of their homes, as well as just the rehab of the paint, as well as their landscape. They did an awesome job at the time, having conversations throughout that period, as well as with them, with Ms. Dorsett now, just to, laying out, I think, what we as a board, making sure that those seniors and whatever else the plant, paint and pay program, the goal and the scope of services that we require. But I do want to say that Ms. Dorsett, along with the Greater Miami Service Corps, did an amazing job then, and I'm glad that we're going into an MOU with them again. I also want to say that I kept looking and I'm like, what am I missing? Like, I'm missing something, and that's what it is. I don't have a purple folder. Is there an extra one? I'm like, I thought, is there something y'all have? No? Is there? I have no papers to read. Is there? I'm sorry. I was thinking it was here and I'm like searching and searching. Is there anything, Mr. Delaney?
Look, I'm not gonna make a change.
It's nothing here. Okay. I don't have anything. Thank you.
Unprepared.
So.
So you've been winging it all night? Oh, okay. Did she get it back?
Madam Chair. So I would just like to understand what's the next step here. So I see we've got an MOU, it's already budgeted. So the question that I have is, what are you looking for from the board on this? And like, what's next step? How do we get this started?
Through the chair, Vice Chair Williams, and Keisha Williams. This was an opportunity to make sure the board was aware of the program, aware of the allocation, review a draft MOU. And if it's the direction of the board, staff will work with the Greater Miami Service Corps to provide an agreement that will be reviewed with the chair. And then we can also provide a copy to the board prior to executing that agreement.
Okay, so this was just a discussion item. I think I heard board member Veronica Williams say that to see the MOU, but we're not voting on anything tonight. And I would like to see us at least get two more proposals from two other entities, please.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair. So.
Yes, sir.
Are you asking director to go get basically two other quotes to folks who do these services?
That's kind of what's in our bylaws, I believe.
No, I know it's in our bylaws. I'm just,
That
looking
he
at the
would
agreement already
bring
done.
for us, because we have here, and I'm just responding because board member Veronica said we have a MOU, and we already stated that we're not voting on that tonight. So to be in line with what we as a board is supposed to do, bring us three quotes and then we can pick from the three. Not saying that the Miami Service Corps might not be the one that we choose, but we need to make sure that we present three, always present three.
Okay, I don't have a problem with getting two others, but, okay, well, I'll meet with the director. I'll meet with the
Thank
director.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's it? Okay, all right. I know the hour is far spent, and one thing that we have not discussed is our expenditure report.
Madam Chair, I have one more.
Oh, okay.
For my
All right.
report.
Go ahead.
So another program that the CRA board the CRA staff is recommending to move forward on is our Small Business Assistance Program, which is the Property and Business Improvement Program. This is why we have the Community Fund of North Miami-Dade, who has orchestrated these programs within the area of Opa-locka as well as North Miami-Dade. So I will allow Leah to come up and speak, but before she speaks, this is a program also that is within the coffers of the CRA and has been approved by the board during this fiscal year. We do have an allocation of $400,000 for commercial grants. So there is an opportunity to work within that scope. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Leah, who can kind of break down the opportunity to assist us on that program.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to the capacity of the Community Fund of North Miami-Dade to work with small businesses in Opa-locka and other areas.
Could you just briefly introduce yourself
Yes.
and address for the record, please? Thank you.
So I am Leah Yafar Peña, and I'm the Executive Director of the Community Fund of North Miami-Dade. We are a community development financial institution or mission-based lender based here in Opa-locka. We are a subsidiary of the 10 North Group, which is formerly known as the OLCDC. And we're here just to present our capacity and background in working with small businesses to be able to present the possibility of helping you with the small business program that you would like to launch. How much time, because I want to be very conscious of everybody's time, Madam Chair, would you?
Yes, Mr. Director, how are we handling this?
I believe 3 minutes will suffice if you have 3 minutes.
So there's a presentation that covers our experience in working with small businesses. I think what I would like to do is just, let's keep going and we'll get to, maybe perhaps the presentation can be circulated later to provide you more background. But I want to talk to the nuts and bolts of what we do and how we work with small businesses. So if we go to the slide that's titled Technical Assistance Program Framework. This is our organization, what we've done, but I want to focus on this. So the reason I want to focus on the program is because these are the different ways we interact with small businesses, and we do outreach for them. And then we are able to work with them by providing technical assistance, and we prepare them to be able to access capital. The small businesses in the CRA, we basically use 3 tools to do this. We use workshops, which are educational workshops on different topics. These are more 1 to 2 hour sessions. We also, if we can keep going, these are some of the workshops that we've conducted in the past, and the topics are all related to operating a business in a professional way. The second tool we use is programs, and programs are more in-depth, multi-week, multi-session programs. They help businesses that are already ready for that type of material to acquire knowledge and practice it and implement it. So we give them access to experts, and this is one of the examples of our programs, which is your business in simple terms, so they can create a business plan and understand their business model and be able to prepare their financial projections. The third tool that we use, if we can keep going, is grants and micro grants. And what we do here is we work with the businesses to understand what it is that their needs are. So through an initial assessment with them, understand what it is that they need. And we provide them some grants, some matching funds they invest some of the funds, we invest some of the funds to help them achieve what it is that they need to do or to learn whatever skill set it is that they need to learn. And this really goes directly to our experience and knowledge and how to work with small businesses. The second part of the presentation, which I won't cover because I'm probably over the 3 minutes by now, is some slides about a program that we launched last year in Miami Gardens, just to kind of show you the depth and breadth of the work that we've done with small businesses in conducting outreach, then working with the businesses to be able to get them through the process of technical assistance and ultimately helping them to receive some grant funding and some loan funding. I think there's not time to really go over it, so I would rather just entertain if there's any questions on what it is that we do and how we could possibly help the CRA with this program.
That's it. Any questions from board members concerning, I know this is a program that we have already voted on. And back in last year, we voted on it. I'm curious about the amount of $400,000. That was the amount that we had for just that one item.
No, so
I thought it encompasses more than just that one item.
so it encompasses more than that item. It's just that within that line item for commercial grants, that's the entire amount. It is up to the board to how much we want to set within those parameters for this particular program.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Board member
Thank
Kelly.
you. Since you all launched this last year, how much of assistance have you given to small businesses through this, since you launched it last year?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
so the program wasn't launched. The program was approved by the board through our budget, but we haven't actually essentially launched the program as of yet. That's why we're bringing it to the board now to move forward on this grant program.
Thank
Get
you,
your
Madam
answer?
Chair.
Got your answer, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Question, this is similar to the facade program that we did last year, right? And I believe.
Mr. Director, is this similar to the facade program?
So this is looking at some of the challenges that we had with the facade program. One of the things with that program, it was a 33% match. And after going through that, we realized that there was a lot of businesses that were left out of being able to be assisted. So what we wanted to do was actually have a holistic grant opportunity to actually help the whole business. So that can include either facade improvement or back of house costs or anything that can help, make that business whole. And the opportunity to work with an organization such as the Community Fund is that they have those technical assistances to stretch that dollar. So it's not just providing funding that may go for one thing or another. It's looking at the whole business and how that money that we're allocating helps sustain that business and keep business open in Opa-locka CRA area.
Okay, so what you're saying is there will be no match this year?
It will
it's
not be a match. It is a whole grant.
a whole grant. And I believe last year we also were in partnership with OLCDC for the facade program as well. Then they match some funding or something like that? If my memory serves me correctly.
No, so the facade improvement was with the Opa-locka CDC back in 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
21, 22.
21, 22, okay.
Correct. However, we scaled that program to look at opportunities to help the whole business due to the fact that we weren't able to assist as many businesses as possible at that time.
Okay, so this program, you said $400,000 will be facilitated solely by OLCDC.
The Community Fund of North Miami-Dade.
Okay, the Community Fund of North Miami-Dade. Right? No, maybe so.
Not the whole 400,000. That is a decision up to the board, how much we want to allocate within that line item for this program.
Okay, so what is the Community Fund of North Miami-Dade going to be doing? I guess that's my question.
What's the dollar amount that they're going to
No,
be,
the scope of work.
the scope of work
That's what-
that they will be doing? And then Corian, Mr. Delane, what is the dollar amount that out of that 400,000? That's why I made specific that the 400,000 is the budgeted amount, but the Community Fund of North Dade, they're not getting the $400,000 to do the whole program. That's what,
Okay, so
so
that's what I
what
was
is
a
the
little,
amount? He wants to know what is the amount
and what will they be doing?
and They gave the scope. That was in the presentation. What is the dollar amount for the community fund?
So we're looking for this program to potentially be an allocation of 200,000. And then we will work with the community fund on what that amount will be in terms of an administrative cost for the services to be rendered to perform the project.
Can you, you still have the floor, Board Member Taylor?
No, I'm good. I was just comparing it to the budget. Okay, we're good. We're good. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
first of all, if I could get the presentation, I would really appreciate that, number one. Number two, Mr. Director, since it was passed last year, if I could get the information as to how the board passed, what was the minutes, so that I could tell what the thinking was, because you're saying you're allocating potentially $200,000 for whatever you voted on last year to do. It didn't get started, so now you're actually starting. So I'd like to see what that looks like. And were there timelines with that as well when you passed it last year?
There weren't, through the chair, there weren't specific timelines for this project. We just allocated for this fiscal year.
Say that again?
There wasn't specific timelines to roll it out, but it was budgeted for this fiscal year to roll out.
Oh, so okay, so you voted on it last year, but it was to roll out this year?
This fiscal year, the dollar amount was voted on by the board for projects such as these, and then commercial grants is where we're going to be taking the money from for this program.
Okay, well, the fiscal year actually started with October, right?
That is correct.
Okay, if I get presentation number one, and number two, whatever the board passed last year and whatever, so I could see, because I'm trying to wrap my arms around the presentation versus this allocation and what that really looks like, and the timelines that you all had, I guess, agreed upon, and what that looks like, so I can get up to speed on it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Delane, I know that. Thank you so much for coming and being so patient and sitting through the entire board meeting to give the presentation. Board Member Kelly and the board members would like a hard copy of the presentation. And also, just to make a note, Board Member Kelly, when we discussed this last year, the facade program did not go as well as we had wanted it to go. So we had made a recommendation, the board, that we would find one area and do one area rather than doing a business here, a business there. If we could find one quarter that we could make an impact on, that was the will of the board at that time. And that's why the amount was taken from 100,000 to $200,000. My question is, how much of this is administrative money? And how much goes directly to the actual project? If you don't have an answer, just say you don't have an answer and then give it to us as a later date as to how much of the 200,000 is administrative and how much is actually going to on the streets for the project. Okay.
That's correct. That's
All
correct.
right. Any other questions for the business assistant? Okay. What's next? Mr. Director, anything else?
That's it for my end, Madam Chair.
Okay, for me, we have in front of us an expenditure report that we just got before the meeting. So I don't know whether everyone have had time to kind of look over it. You know, I have some questions. I don't want us to yes, sir.
My question really is just general in a nature.
Mm-hmm.
it just seems to be taking us forever to get the information. And my sound. Say that again? Oh, you talking about me in the chair? Okay, to get the information, like I said, we just got this early, including the status report. We've got to do a better job of getting this information to us in order for us to be, especially since we only meet once a month. Because now we have questions even about it. We don't really meet again until another month. So we gotta somehow get a better grip on that. That's the only thing I wanted to say on the reports. I know we have presentations on different other things, but that's okay. I haven't had a chance to look at it either, so I'm gonna defer talking about it.
Okay, Board Member Kelly, anyone else? Thank you for that comment. Anyone else concerning the financial report? You haven't had time to look at it, you want more time? Now, the next time that we get one is going to be inclusive of another month. I'm gonna say it again for the record. Mr. Delane, we needs to move on getting the CRA getting their bookkeeping services. That RFP that was voted on over a year ago needs to go out on the street. The CRA needs to have their own bookkeeping services so that board members can question, if they have questions, they have someone that they could meet with and go over. Because I have questions concerning this report that we have here. And I don't want to have to go through every line item, but almost all of them needs to go through. But one that just kind of jumps out to me that I will ask you about, I hope you can give me some direction. When we had the Black History event, there were a lot of items that was there. The Black History event was beautiful. Let me just say that. But there were a lot of items that were left over. We pay the consultant to do the event. Do they take those items back? Like it was some nice portraits of Michelle Obama, I think it was Obama, and they were really, really nice. Yes, answer. And so what happened to those items, Mr. Delane? Do we give them back? Because we paid for them. So what happens to them afterwards?
Madam Chair, I'll let our project coordinator, Ms. Tiffany Dallas, provide an update.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Chair Russell, the pictures were returned. The larger ones were returned. The smaller ones, I have to double check on what happened. But the biggest gain from that event, we now have a step and repeat. The sign in the back that had our logo and all that other stuff in the back corner.
Yes.
We can now use that and repurpose it for our future events.
Okay.
So that's a big win. I believe those step and repeats go for $300 to $500. So I'm glad that we were able to obtain that to repurpose for future events.
Great job. But what happened to those? You're gonna find out what happened to the other.
Yes, I believe
because-
the portraits are property of the public relations firm or the.
If we, okay, all right, thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Dallas. Mr. Director, if we paid for those items are not the property of the advertising firm. We paid, they belong to the CRA, and they could have been donated to one of our neighborhood schools to go in their libraries to help, even at not City Hall, but over in the Parks and Recreation for decoration or something. But they should not have gone back to, I don't think, the other board members can weigh in, but that's just my opinion. They should not have gone back to the consultant.
Why did, well, why, I mean, I heard it was nice, so it wasn't there. Why did it go back to the consultant? We just didn't give them direction? Was that part of the agreement
Maybe
with
we
them?
rent
I
it.
mean,
Do we rent it?
Hmm?
Maybe they were rent.
We have to, the director have to give us some answers. If you don't have them tonight, if you don't have the answer tonight, it's fine. You can go back and just find out what happened to them and what happened to them. I see you, Board Member Bass.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To me, that was a simple question. What happened to them? Were they rented? Did we purchase them? That should be a yes or no answer. Like literally, were they purchased or were they rented?
Through the chair, I can provide an update on that.
Okay. He'll provide you with an update, Board Member Bass. He'll provide you with an update. Okay. Anyone else before we move on?
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am, Board Member, Nikisha Williams.
Just a quick comment or two quick comments. So one, I want to echo that I really do believe we need somebody who will help us from a budget perspective. Thank you for providing this though, but I think there's some, we can do a better job at making sure that we're getting a better budget in front of the board on a consistent basis. But I think number two, just looking at this is really disheartening because it just shows how we are 3/4 of our way through this, this fiscal year. And there's so many big projects that we have not accomplished yet. I believe it's because we haven't accomplished them, not simply because our finance folks have not booked the items. And so I would love to see us just make sure that we're looking at our budget, we're spending our money, we're executing on the plan that we set at the beginning of this year, and we are setting our priorities based on that. Right now, it just, when I look at how we're spending our money, it seems like we're going to a lot of events, but we are not focused on the big items that we should be doing here, the streetscape program, et cetera. And so I just implore you to make sure that you're focused on the big items and the execution. Thank you.
Anyone else from the board?
Are we doing board comments? Is that what we're doing?
You can, yes.
Oh, I didn't know. That's why I'm asking. Did we move on or not?
Well, are we finished? Anyone else have any concerns with the financial report? I think Board Member Nikisha Williams, along with myself, we have, you know, and you all know that I've beaten this budget thing. I've beaten it as to we need to get our own finance department so that someone will be here to answer the questions from the board concerning finances. We have a budget, Mr. Director, with items on the budget that we need to move forward. Another one of my concerns, you don't have to answer it tonight. You could give it to me at a later date. I see that we budget for overtime, and I see that some expenditures were done for overtime. Can you please just give us an update on that? And the rest of the items, I'll just go through with you at another time. If anyone else from the board have any concerns?
Madam Chair, as relates to the experience report, I have a lot of questions, but I just don't want to hold up the time
Yes.
tonight, so I'll schedule a meeting
Please.
with the director,
Yes,
because I have a lot of them too. So I'll just put that on the record. I'll meet with them for the brevity of time. I won't do it tonight.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else? Board comments, Board Member Irvin, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions. Madam Chair, how long have you chaired the CRA board.
This is my, I think this is my third term.
And what accomplishments have, under your leadership, have we've done?
I think we got our budget. We've gone through, 3 executive directors, I believe, 2 interims. And I think the accomplishment that we have done as a CRA is that we've brought we've gotten our monies done here. When I first started on the CRA, we were not getting our TIF dollars. We've moved to getting our TIF dollars. We've accomplished the facade program was one initiative that we had. I think that's when Board Member Kelly was on the board. But as the chair, it's not my responsibility to move projects. That's the responsibility of staff to move projects. It's my responsibility to chair the board and to chair as a director. It's almost the same because as the mayor or even the vice mayor of the commission, my responsibility is the same as everyone on the board. So I don't have the ability to direct the director, the interim director, or even the executive director as to what they should do. We as a board make that decision. I'm one vote, just like yourself and anyone else. So the accomplishments that I as chair accomplish is what we as a board accomplish. This is not a chair-ran board. This is everyone is one vote. So there have been things that have been accomplished by the board. And I try to give us as a board direction, but I don't make the decision as to what projects come. I don't make the decision as to how those projects are moved. We make that decision as a board. It's just as much every one of us, vice chair, yourself, board member Kelly, Taylor, Williams, and Bass. It's all of our responsibilities to move the board. I chair the meetings.
Okay, I ask because I've just been at this for 7 months.
Yes, ma'am.
We sit and we talk every month about what we're gonna do. I refuse to do a briefing this time because nothing is being done. It's like we sit here and our time is wasted month after month after month. Nothing is happening. When I talk to the residents in the city, I had a conversation today and I said, oh, I have CRA meeting time. Oh, what is CRA? And I told them, and then they asked me, well, what has the CRA done? And I go numb because what can I say? Nothing. In the 7 months I've been here, we haven't, we got to do better. We have to do better.
Okay, that's all of us.
Well,
So what
we
have
to do better.
Board member, Irvin.
Irvin.
What do you recommend that we do? Because you are just as much a part of this board as every one of us sitting up here. That's why it's important that we meet with the interim director, because all of us are the ones that give him direction. And if you give him a directive and he does not do it, That's for you to come to us as a board and say, the director has not done, and I've given the director, whatever, but it's important for you to meet with him on those, briefings, just like you do the city manager. And let me say this also, the CRA is not a city board. The CRA is a separate entity from the city. When new board members come on board, Mr. Delane, I don't know whether, I think the manager was the executive director at the time and had a workshop for the CRA to explain what the CRA is. And I, during the meeting, said then, make sure that all CRA members have the plan, the CRA plan, because that's what we're supposed to be following as a board. We follow that plan. Some of the ideas that we come up, or all of the ideas that we come up, come out of that plan. We don't just say, we're gonna have a facade program, or we're gonna do something to Parks and Recreation, or let's do something to Ingram Park. We don't just come up with that. We have a plan that we follow. And everyone on this board is responsible, have the same amount of responsibility to carry out that plan. So what you have to say is just as important as what I have to say as the chair. I chair the board. I'm not Corion's boss. I am not his boss. I am the chair of the board. We, all of us, just like with the city manager, everyone have a responsibility to the city manager. That's the same where we are as a board. Ms. Russell is not Mr. Delane's boss.
To my board members, Board Member Williams, Board Member Bass, Board Member Taylor, Board Member Kelly, Board Member Russell, and Board Member Williams, we got to do something. Coming here month after month and having these meetings, and nothing is on the streets. We gonna have to stand up and do something. If Mr. Delaney is not the guy for the job, I'm gonna say it. We need to find somebody that's for the job. We got some decisions to make. Because I can't keep doing this. I cannot keep doing this.
Again, a board member Irving, I'll say to you, what do you suggest?
I'll figure it out.
Okay.
I'll figure it out. I have given Mr. Delaney lots of ideas for our city and what things that we should do, and
But board
you don't
member
see
Irving,
anything. Yes.
those ideas that you give Mr. Delane, they have to be a part of that plan, the CRA plan that we have.
Mhm.
He cannot make decisions for the city in general. He has to come up with a plan that's according to the plan that's already in place within the parameters
Yes, ma'am.
of those boundaries of
Yes,
the
ma'am.
CRA.
Yes, ma'am.
So
We have. We
you've
have,
you've
yes.
done, okay. So my suggestion to the board members is, do you all think we need to have another workshop on the CRA and the function of the CRA?
We need to get.
Board members, I need to hear from you.
We need to get stuff done. That's what we need.
I don't need a workshop. I just have one thing for the, under reports or whatever, when you finish, Madam Chair.
Board member Irvin still has the floor.
I'm done.
You done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
you.
You're welcome. Before we go on to you, board member Kelly, any suggestions from the board? Everyone heard from board member Irving. Anyone have any suggestions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to ask that maybe Mr. Delane takes this feedback back and you come back with a plan to help us understand how you're going to get us on track. We've got a budget that outlines how we should be spending our time. You hear the frustration in the board members, and so I would like to maybe put this in the hands of Mr. Delane and have him perhaps come back to us and make a presentation that says, I hear you loudly and clearly. this is what we're going to accomplish, and this is when we're going to get it accomplished. And these are the resources that we need to accomplish them. Like, I think that's going to be incredibly important because we recognize you can't do everything by yourself. So you need to come here prepared to let us understand what you need in order to get it done. How does that sound? Maybe.
Thank you.
Sounds good to me. Yes, ma'am, Board Member Williams. I'm sorry. No. Kelly's first.
No, I would defer to Commissioner Williams, Board Member Williams. I certainly will. It gives me great pause, but I will do.
With pause. Come on.
It's so quiet.
What?
But like for the last 15 minutes, I've been quiet.
Okay,
So,
all right.
Thank you. I want to say that leadership isn't easy. Being a leader is not easy. But think about this, and I say this as a leader in my own right. We're all leaders.
Yes.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over
Yes.
and expecting the same results. And that's what's happening. We're about to go insane. We're literally about to go insane. And that definition is happening right now. What I do hate is that it's happening in public. I think that what is happening is that the recommendations have not been taken. The backdoor conversations that I know that you and I have had on leadership, that you've had with I'm about to say Vice Mayor, with Board Member Russell and everyone else. So I'm going to pull a Board Member Kelly move. I'm going in my profession, you have 90 days. You have 90 days to do what you need to do. We've given you 2 years, more than 90. And I've said this before, but at this point, 30 days to make some movement, some traction, to bring back a plan like Board Member Williams just stated, and for us to see, or in those 30, I think at this point, we're going to have to move in a different direction. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say it. I didn't even want to say it on the record, but it is very frustrating for me. And I'll say, and I'm not going to speak for, I know that Board Member Taylor and I have been on the board the same amount of time, so I'm not going to speak for anyone else. But within those 2/3 years, I don't know where we are at this point, but we have to have some movement. I know that we can be just as great as all the other CRAs. I would like to make a recommendation, Chair Russell, because you are the senior member and the one, you are correct. You're one vote, just like we are all equal in the vote. However, as the chair, you also have more, you take the tours, you do the meetings, you do a little bit more than we do with Mr. Delane. So what I'm asking is if you can guide a little bit more, recommend a little bit more, do a little bit more that needs to happen, so that when we receive these agenda items, if they're not the recommendation that you stated, let us know. Because at some point, you're right, Mr. Delane cannot meet all the time with the board every time before the agenda is set. So if the agenda is not set, if there is a recommendation from at least the chair, the vice chair, someone that, these items should be removed, not removed, something amended, can we do that before it's set? I'm trying to give a little bit more suggestion so that or leadership, so that we can just get things moving. But I do want 30 days. That's it for me.
Madam Chair.
Oh, boy, here we go. Here you go. There you go, Board Member. Thank you. Before you start, thank you, Board Member Williams. I appreciate that. And we as a board will look at it and take it into consideration and I appreciate leadership. I do. I know how it is very difficult sometimes. And you all know that I sit up here and sometimes I'm cringing because I don't like for things to go over in the public as if we don't know what we're doing when we do know what we're doing. And it doesn't make us as a board, and it doesn't make me as a chair feel good a lot of time. But Mr. Delane knows that I've had this conversation. I do not like to air. And I've said to the board, I do not like to air everything in the public. So I talked to him as much as today on the telephone that you are sliding down a slippery slope. Because I know in leadership, there are certain things that I can't do it, the board can't do it. You have to give it to us. And one thing I will say, and I said to Mr. Delane today, and since we're here, I'm going to say it now. You have to stand up for yourself and show the board that you are a leader. I can't do that. You have to stand up for yourself and show the board that you are a leader. What you bring before us, and sometimes when agenda items come, I've already said, you shouldn't do that. That's just Ms. Russell. That's just Chair Russell. I can't speak for the entire board and say, don't put this on the agenda or don't put that on the agenda. This is what you should put on the agenda unless I have an agenda item that I want to put on. So I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the conversation, Board Member Irvin, because maybe if you didn't bring it up concerning the chair, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I appreciate it. And I know how to take constructive criticism. Board Member Williams, and then we're going to go to, I think, Taylor, you wanted to be next?
Oh, no, y'all keep skipping Commissioner Kelly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bible study.
You know, waited patiently.
No, I know how to obey and I know how to bound. So I'll
I'm
wait.
sorry.
Wait.
I'm sorry, Board Member Kelly. Come on, come on.
I'll defer. I want to hear all these comments, so go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Go ahead, Board Member Nikisha.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Question, when did we appoint Mr. Delane as interim? Because I know it was a 6-month period. Does anyone know that date?
It was like 2 months ago.
2 months ago, okay.
Bring us back in remembrance what was said at that meeting before Mr. Delane was appointed.
Well, I'm not gonna do that, but what I would, I mean, obviously, we're all frustrated with how this is going, right? And we're frustrated with the progress. And so I would say that progress predated 2 months ago, and we decided to appoint him as the interim director, and 2 months is no time to figure it out. And so I would highly recommend that we allow the 6 months to play itself out. But I think it's going to be incredibly important that we give Mr. Delane a little bit of extra support. And so I wholeheartedly believe that he needs a little bit of professional development. I would recommend in 2 areas in particular, project management, as well as managing a board. I don't know if any of y'all have ever managed a board, but it is not easy. It is a dance that you have to do. And sometimes you just don't know what you're walking into. And so I think he needs some training on how to manage a board, because I believe that before 2 months ago, he didn't have to really deal with this. He had someone who could help him manage through this. And I think he needs more support than we can provide. And I appreciate that you take extra time with him.
Yes.
He needs more support than you can provide.
Yes.
And so I would highly recommend that we make sure
Recommended
that he
training.
gets some professional development
Yes.
in both of those areas. And I would also encourage us to do a mentor match. He needs to be working with a CRA director from somewhere else who can really help you navigate the politics that happen here and help you navigate the challenges that come up. That's my comment. Thank you.
Board Member Williams, I appreciate that. And this is the second time that Mr. Delane is hearing this. This is the second time that he's hearing that you need a mentor and that you need professional development. That's why we as a board made sure that it was in the budget for training and for education. So we're giving him the tools. Board Member Williams said 30 days. You said
I'll retract that. I'll definitely retract that. I didn't know it was 2 months, but, you know, we're just.
well,
I-
it's
I
been 2 months
appreciate the
because, you know, the city manager was the interim.
No, of
He was the
course,
executive
of course.
director and Mr. Delane was the manager.
The professional development, smart move.
Yes.
Definitely needed, and I'm definitely on board with that, so. thanks.
Yes.
What happened?
You're gonna go last?
I'm gonna wait till everybody's done.
Oh.
I don't want to interrupt anyone.
Go ahead, Board Member Taylor.
Vice Chair, Williams said it best. I just didn't think it was fair for us to put our director on trial like we're doing today. He's only been here for 2 months. We should give him, and I believe Commissioner Williams said it, we need to give him, checkpoints. Let him know what we expect from him.
Yes.
But we have yet to have,
We
we have
haven't
yet
done
to
that.
have done that. No,
Done it.
not as a board, maybe individually, but
That's
all
what
of this
we haven't
stuff, the stagnation predates him. So to blame him for it is not fair. It's not fair. We've had 3 city managers and someone else that has sat in that role. He just got here. So I am in agreement with Vice Chair, give him all of the support that
Yes.
he needs, but to put him on trial tonight based on other people is not fair to him. And that's my opinion. And we talk about leadership, but tearing a person down is not a good practice of good leadership.
Yep.
That's my opinion.
Yes.
So I'm gonna take the positive approach like Vice Chair did. Let's provide them with the support. So I'll say to you, Mr. Director, whatever I can do personally to
Yes.
help you or to, you know, let you know the people I know that works with CRAs and help introduce you to people outside of the city, I'm willing to do that, but I'm not gonna tear them down in public.
Yes. Thank you, Board Member Taylor. And
Madam Chair.
yes,
Board Kelly is going to round us out, but I think I'd like to offer something as part of this support system here, right? Because
Yeah.
we've been on for like a month and a half, maybe 2 months ourselves, that we're
Yeah.
trying to help to advance things. What I hear,
you've done a great job in doing that, Mr. Attorney.
but it's all part of the ecosystem, right? You know,
Yes.
so I think
Yes.
Member Williams, I listened to her very carefully this evening, and it's really important that information be shared in advance. Because truth be told, not everyone reads a board packet. I'm just going to say that transparently because it's people are busy.
Yes.
So staff needs to provide some advanced summary information before the board packet so that each item can be teed up when making a decision. And listening to Board Member Williams, number 2, there's a budget that you approved. There's a strategic plan which you approved. And now it's time to kind of put some meat on a timeline and specific things being done. I would say to you that the director is doing a lot of house cleaning. And truth be told, we are doing way beyond our scope that you approved 2 months. I must tell you that. Because we're trying to help move the ball, and we made that commitment. But truth be told is that there's still a lot of house cleaning to be done. But I think transparently communicating information on the specific things, board members need to have priorities, right? So, and the board members so happen to also be city commissioners, transparently, members of the public. So you are hearing it as a commissioner, but you're hearing it more as a commissioner than you are as a CRA board member, right? So there's a balance that you have to carry there too. But there's a lot of information that you hear as a city commissioner dealing with residents and businesses that you need to give specific direction to the director on specific priorities that you have, so that he can focus all these things. And even from the audit from the state, there's things that we still have to house clean there as well. So it's a lot, right? So I'm not making excuses for the director by any means. I'm just saying to you that Chair Russell is correct, that the board collectively has to be very specific as to what you need to effectively and efficiently do what you need to do with your time when you're here. And one of the things that the director can help you with, Board Member Williams, is the A and the B before the C. Right? It's not difficult, right? So collectively, as city attorney, we're going to try to help with that before it gets to you, with the director communicating that, right? But I think that the frustration from this meeting today, I think is healthy, right? I think it's healthy. Let's just say that, because it's time well, and the director is going to be better for that. And I appreciate Board Member Williams' suggestions, but it really takes all of us to kind of move this to the change of the culture of the CRA that was happening before. I wasn't here before, so I don't really know. I said, but I hear all the frustrations here tonight, and we got to do better, Board Member Irvin. We understand that, but it's going to take all the pieces of us supporting the director to do that. And then if he doesn't meet your expectations after 6 months, you agree 2 months to evaluate it. Right, but clearly from this meeting this evening, we have to do some more things collectively to kind of move beyond your frustrations, because I see it and I hear it, and I don't think it's productive for anyone. But there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, right? And there's something missing, Chair Russell, in terms of communicating those pieces. And Corian, we need to kind of figure out what the missing piece of the communication is, because there's a lot of house cleaning happening behind the scenes that's not connecting the dots. I just wanted to offer that.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Mr. Hill, Attorney Hill. And I appreciate constructive criticism and correction and leadership, because that's what makes us better as a board. And I'm going to continue to fight for my community, because I know we can do this. But again, I will say that it takes all of us to do it. One thing that I think that I've said it several times, that myself and board member Williams, number 2, we don't have the privy a lot of time as to what commissioners have. We don't get information sometime concerning what's going on in the city, but Board Member Kelly was here with the inception of the CRA. I think you were the mayor at the time that you all approved the city being a CRA. And I understand that it's a balancing act sometime to separate the city from the CRA, but we have to do better, I think, in my opinion, of making sure that we separate the CRA and work it as a separate entity. It's not easy to do when you still have the majority of your brain is city-wise, but we have to find a way to do that so that we don't interact the two in the city and the CRA, and to make sure that we're successful. Because when this board is successful, and I've said this to Mr. Delane, we all are successful because we are residents of this community. So again, I commend everybody for all the comments that's been said, and we will make sure. I'm going to give the like how you say in church, I'm going to give the father the benediction. He's going to have the benediction. But I know that we all of our time, Board Member Irving, is valuable. And I understand your frustration, but I think that collectively we can get it done. And when we understand the process and that plan that we're supposed to be working towards, that we also supposed to be revising. I think when we understand that, it took me a minute to grasp it. And then I think, well, we will be on board. So, Mr. Delane and everyone, we're gonna move towards that. Board Member Kelly, we're gonna give you the floor. And after that, I know Board Member, if no one else have anything, Board Member Taylor's gonna hit the gavel that say we adjourn. There you go, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I was really not going to weigh in on this issue. Actually, I had one more that I wanted to mention to the director. Let me just say briefly, everyone that saw the history knows how hard I fought to get the CRA in the
Yes, sir.
city and the political capital. So I'm not going to weigh in that, but what I do want to say is I started pastoring the church that I'm at, thankfully, in 1989 as a young man, not having experience. I had been in church all my life. I had watched, I observed. And one of the things I realized is I needed to get some training. I needed to sit up under some folks who knew more than me, and I just needed to watch and hang around folks that knew more than me. And I don't say it to brag, but 34 years later, I've survived pastoring still the same church. Mr. Lane, you know, he's heard all the comments. And so I hope he will take them to heed. I'm not going to put a 30 days, 6 month. I'm just going to observe, and hopefully he's going to take the comments that have been given, suggestions, and he's going to do what he can do. I will say, just like all of us have said, we make ourselves available to him. If he decides that he wants to use that experience, my door is always open for that. And I'm going to leave that at that. And we'll just see where it goes. I'm not going to pursue that anymore. And like you said, when the CRA wins, all of us wins. So I hope that we can leave here. And as I said, nobody, because I can spend all night just telling you the headaches of getting the CRA on board and getting tip dollars when we didn't have them and all of that. So I definitely want to see the CRA do well. And so, Mr. Delane, that's my comments on that issue. My door is open. I'm just going to say it like that. My door is open. I just have one thing before we adjourn that I want to ask the director. And I did reach out to him on this because it concerned me, because they are two distinct entities, as you mentioned, Madam Chair. The tour that took place last week, that when I reached out to him, because I was really told it was CRA initiated, but it wasn't, according to him, CRA initiated, that he was just invited on the tour. What I did not get, and I still want to get, was a follow-up report that can be given to all the board, really how that took place and what the CRA's involvement is potentially, or why we're invited. And I like to get that in black and white because I don't like verbal. I did not like the way it transpired, and because I'm a CRA board member. So I want to get that in black and white, how it transpired, because as you said, there are a lot of dynamics going on in this city. And I, don't want to see him get swooped up in it, but Opa-locka is a small town. So Mr. Director, if I could just get that in black and white, I would appreciate it. I'm going to leave my comments right there. But now, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Mr. Director, do you have anything before we adjourn?
Through the chair. I first want to appreciate all the comments that were made on this dais. The constructive criticism, the feedback, the frustrations, all of it. As a young man that grew up in this community, my number one priority is to make this community better. As a young man that came back to this community to work in this community, I take that as, something that shouldn't be taken for granted. And, I'm going to do what needs to be done to make sure this agency is held to a higher standard. I will utilize the resources that have been afforded to me. I will definitely utilize every member of this board to the best of my ability to make sure that we move this agency forward. So again, I greatly appreciate everything that's been said, whether good, bad, or indifferent. because that's what's going to make this agency stronger. And I thank you for all of that. So with that, you'll get the best out of me. Period. Thank you.
That's all we can ask. Motion to adjourn? Over.
Right.